Hi everyone, welcome to Learning Impact. In today's lecture, we will discuss the difference between the rural community and the urban community. Before we go into the details of the distinctions between the rural and urban community, we must define that what does it mean by community. Community is a social group with some degree of we feeling and living in a given area. It means that there are some characteristics that actually form community, and there must have a group of people who are living together in an area fulfilling their needs by the mutual cooperation, and there must be a group of people having a sense of belonging to place of residence creates a sentiment of community. And also that community is a group of people having a common culture. So it means that the group of people who are living together and who belong together in such a way that they do and share this or that particular interest, but a whole set of interest. Okay, the smallest testimonial group that can embrace all aspects of the social life is called community. So we can say that community is that when the group of people who are living together and they are sharing any kind of culture, and they are showing cooperation towards each other, and they share a common culture. This is how the community form. Now we have always two types of community. When we look around the world, we have two types of community in each country. It exists like rural and urban community. First, we have to define that what does it mean by rural and urban community. A community which is a product of the natural will and land is a chief source of wealth. This is called the rural community. What does it mean by natural will? Natural will means that it is a type of community that emerges naturally, often based on a shared traditions, values, and social bond. And this type of community is mostly found in rural areas. Its name indicates that it is a rural community. So it is actually the product of the natural will, means that it is actually the product of the shared traditions, values, and the social bonds that are all the natural wills. For example, a small rural town where residents they have lived for generations. They share a strong sense of identity. They engage in communal activities like farming, festivals, and volunteer work. Relationships are personal and social bonds are strong. On the other hand, the urban community is a community that is actually a product of rational will, and money is the chief form of wealth. It means that it refers to a kind of community or society that emerge from rational, self-interested individuals coming together to achieve the common goals. This type of society is typically found in urban areas. So for example, a large urban city where individuals they are from diverse backgrounds, they come together to pursue economic opportunities, education, or career advancements. So relationships are often impersonal and social bonds are weaker. Individuals they interact based on a mutual self-interest and the rational calculation. Okay, so it means that, for example, if there is a rural town, a neighbor they might help you with a harvest simply because that you are part of the community. This is the example that how there is a natural will in the rural community. But on the other hand, as it is a rational will in urban community, it means that, for example, if there is an urban city, a neighbor might help you furniture only if you offer to pay them or return the favor in some way. So it means that the kind of the relationship in case of the urban community are more calculated. They are more goal oriented rather than the relationship oriented. But in case of the rural community, it is more relationship oriented. It is more the product of the natural will. It is not as calculated as it is in the urban community. Most of the rural community, the people who are living together and who are cooperating with each other, they are mostly doing it out of altruism, not out of calculated minds or thinking of any kind of reciprocal outcomes. Then the second is the division of labor. In case of the rural community, we know that there are limited professions available in rural community, and this is one of the reasons that most of the people they migrate to the urban community or to the urban areas, where there are unlimited professions. And these limited professions also make less chances of the rural community to compete in a global world. And now, what does it mean by limited professions and unlimited professions? In case of the rural community, the population is relatively small and the economy is primarily based on agriculture. So the division of labor is limited and the people, they often take on multiple roles. Okay, so it means that one person may perform more than one task at a time. But in case of the urban community, as there are more specialization of fields, so the one person are mostly specialized or more skillful in a particular specific field. So that's why in case of the A rural community, we can say, like for example, the farmer, they grow crops and they also raises the livestock. Similarly, for example, in case of the town, the bakers, they also serve as a postmaster and they help with the farm's work during the harvest season. Similarly, the local mechanic or the fixes who also fixes the cars, tractors and other equipments. But in case of the urban community, the division of labor is more specialized. A large urban city has a complex economy with various industries, services and specialized professions. So the division of labor is more detailed and people typically have specific specialized roles. For example, if there is a person who is a cardiologist who is actually specialized in only the heart surgery, this is the urban community which actually provide a variety of options to be aware as a part of your career. Similarly, a software engineer designs apps for a tech firm. Similarly, a professional chef who owns a restaurant and employs staff also that who include the waiters, the kitchen assistants. So in case of the urban community, the division of labor is more complex and people have specialized roles that contribute to the functioning of the large economy. So it is actually how the division of labor differs between the rural and the urban community. Okay, so we can say that in case of the rural community, there are limited professions and people often take on the multiple roles. But in case of the urban community, as there are more complex division of labor, so they have the specialized professions and a greater variety of industries and services. Nature of relations. In case of the urban community, it is mostly the social interactions are often informal and also personal based on the shared traditions and values. In case of the rural town, for example, the neighbors, they often gather at the local dinner for breakfast. So they share stories, gossip and news without expecting anything in return. So the interaction is informal and the relationships are built on mutual trust and familiarity. But in case of the urban community, the relationship is formal and it is more reciprocal. In urban communities, social interactions are often formal, they are impersonal, and they are based on the reciprocal in relationship. For example, in case of the large city, two colleagues, they meet for coffee to discuss a work project. So they exchange information, they share ideas, and they collaborate on tasks. So the interaction is formal and their relationship is based on a mutual benefit and reciprocity. They expect to help each other in the future just as they are helping each other now. So it means that they are always thinking of something in return whenever they try to help each other. So this is a distinction which actually highlighted how the social interaction differ between the rural and the urban community. So in case of the rural community, we have more informal personal interaction which is based on a shared traditions and values. But in case of the urban community, we have more formal impersonal interactions based on a reciprocal relationship and the mutual benefit. Okay, then in case of the environment, in case of the rural community, it is mostly surrounded by the natural environment, such as the forest, mountains, rivers, farmland. For example, a small village nestled in a valley surrounded by rolling hills, forest, and a nearby river, and residents live in harmony with nature, relying on the land for farming and also hunting and fishing. So most of the professions which are adopted which have been taken by the rural community, they are mostly associated with the nature like fishing, agriculture. They are relying on nature for their profession. But on the other hand, the artificial environment is more prevalent in urban community, because in case of the urban, they are mostly characterized by the artificial environments like infrastructure, which include roads, bridges and highways. It also include buildings like apartments, offices, and they also include human-made landscapes like parks, gardens, public spaces. These all are the human-made environment. So for example, any metropolis city, they have the busy streets and they will have network of highways. Residents live and work in a predominantly human-made environment with limited access to the natural spaces. So this distinction actually highlight the differing environmental context of rural and urban community. Rural communities are immersed in natural environment, while urban communities are surrounded by the artificial and the human-made environment. Okay, then the another difference is the social mobility. In case of the rural community, social mobility is often limited, but in case of the urban community, there are more chances of social mobility. Before we go into what are the reasons that are responsible for the less and the more chances of social mobility in rural urban community, we must know, right, what does it mean by social mobility. Social mobility refers to the movement of individuals or groups from one social class to another. And I have already made a long lecture on the social mobility, its causes, hindrances. We have discussed all it in detail. Now, in case of the rural communities, social mobility is often limited, and there are various reasons for that. First is the limited job opportunities. In case of the rural community, there are fewer job openings and low paying jobs. They can make it difficult for individuals to improve their socioeconomic status, and there is also limited access to quality education and vocational training that can restrict individuals' ability to acquire new skills and knowledge. And there is also the close-knit social networks. The social connections are strong in a rural community, so they can also create barriers to social mobility. Outsiders may find it difficult to break into the established social circles. And also there are another reason, like the traditional social structures. Rural communities often have traditional social hierarchies which can make it challenging for individuals to move up in the social ladder. Now, there are examples of the the less chances or the limited opportunities for the social mobility in case of the rural community could be, for example, a small rural town where there is a family who has lived and worked on the same farm for generations. While they are respected members of the community, their socioeconomic status remains relatively unchanged due to the limited job opportunities and lack of access to the education and also the lack of access to the quality training. Then in case of the urban community often have more fluid social mobility, and there are various reasons for that. First is that diverse job opportunities. Cities typically offer a wide range of job openings, including the higher pay positions and career advancement opportunities, and also the access to education and training. Urban areas usually have more institutions of higher education, vocational training programs, online courses, and making it easier for individuals to acquire the new skills. Then in case of also one of the other reason is the dynamic social networks, that urban communities are often more diverse and welcoming to newcomers, allowing individuals to build new social connections and networks. And also the meritorious social structure. Urban society tend to place more emphasis on individual merit and achievement, making it easier for individuals to move up in the social ladder based on their talent and the effort. So we can take example like a large city. An individual from a low income background can access education and training programs, build a professional network, and secure a high paying job. This enables them to improve their socioeconomic status and achieve the upward social mobility. Now, the other difference of the rural-urban community is the social stratification, which is more or less associated or linked with the social mobility. Social stratification, the basis of the social stratification in case of the rural community is the caste, profession, and the economic resources. In case of the urban community, the caste is the base which usually fade away. But in case of the rural community, the social stratification is often based on caste. Caste is one of the most rigid type of the social stratification. We have discussed it in our last lectures. Social hierarchy and status are influenced by the caste system, with certain castes considered higher or lower than the other. It depends on the perception of people towards a particular caste and how they view or deem them. In case of the American society, the black people caste which is on the basis of race is considered inferior as compared to the white caste. Similarly, in case of the Indian society, there is a caste system like the Brahmins who are at the top and Dalits at the bottom. So this is that depend that how the people they perceive and they deem the members of a single caste in their society, and it affects the chances of their social mobility, and in turn also define a rigid boundaries of the social stratification. Then another base is the profession. Traditional occupations such as farming or craftsmanship or trade, they can define a person's social standing in a rural community. And also the economic resources, land ownership, wealth, and access to resources can contribute to the social status. Then in case of the urban community, it tend to emphasize the professional achievements. Education, job titles, and career advancements are key indicators of the social status. And also the economic resources, income, wealth, and material positions are important markers of the social standards. Okay, so in case of the rural community, we can say that they often prioritize traditional social hierarchies, culture, heritage, and a local custom. But in case of the urban community, it pay emphasis to the individual achievement, meritocracy, and economic success. Then the size of the population. In case of the rural community, there is a small population size and in case of the urban, it is more large. Now, the size of population is a significant distinguishing factor between the rural and the urban community. Rural areas typically have the smaller and the more diverse population, but the rural community population is mostly of low density. It is smaller in size. The number of people who are living per unit area, this is the population density. So the number of people who are living per unit area is lower in rural areas, but in case of the urban community, there is a large population size which also lead to the high population density. Urban areas are characterized by large size. They are more concentrated population, and the number of people who are living per unit area, which is the population density, it is also significantly higher in the urban areas. For example, if we take the statistic, in case of the Pakistani society, in case of the 2020, the rural population was approximately 62.5% of the total population, which is according to the World Bank. And in the same year, 2020, the urban population was about 37.5% of the total population. So we can say that the population density in 2020 was 256 people who were living per square kilometer in urban area, but 152 people per square kilometer in rural area. Similarly, if we take the statistic in the context of the Indian society, the rural population in 2020 was approximately 65.5% of the total population, which is also according to the same source, World Bank, and the urban population was approximately 34.5% of the total population. So we can say that the population density was about 460 people per square kilometer in urban area, but 210 people per square kilometer in the rural area. So these statistics actually illustrate the significant differences in a population size and a density between the rural and urban areas in both the Pakistani and the Indian society. Then another difference is the social differentiation. Social differentiation refers to the ways in which the society they categorize and they distinguish individuals or groups based on various characteristics. In case of the rural community, the social differentiation is simple and it is often less complex, and there are various reasons for that. First is the smaller population size, which we have just discussed, that the fewer people means that the fewer social categories and distinctions. Similarly, the culture is homogeneous. Rural areas often have more uniform culture with the shared values and traditions. And also the limited social mobility. Social hierarchies are often more stable with less movement between the social classes. But for example, in case of the small rural town, social differentiation might be based on the farmers versus the non-farmers, because there is a more prominent occupation there, that is the farming. So the social differentiation may be based on the farmers versus the non-farmers, maybe the landowners versus the tenants, church members versus the non-members. These are the fewer social categories because there are fewer populations. Of course, fewer population means that the fewer social categories. But in case of the urban community, as there are high population, there is more chances of social mobility. So of course, it will open the doors for the more social categories in case of the urban community. So in case of the urban, there is a bit more diverse and a complex social differentiation. There are various reasons, like the large population size. More people mean more social categories and distinctions. And also cultural diversity. Urban people are often the melting pots of different culture, ethnicities, and the lifestyles. Greater social mobility. Social hierarchies are often more fluid with greater social movement between the social classes. So in case of the large urban city, social differentiation might be based on occupation. Social differentiation might be based on occupation. For example, the doctor, lawyer, artist, or entrepreneur. Might be the education level, like the high school, a college, or the university level. Might be the income level, like the low income, middle income, or the upper income. Might be the ethnicity, like the African American, Asian, or the white. Might be the lifestyle, like maybe the LGBTQ plus community is also the part of the urban community. So these distinctions are more complex, and it's reflecting the diverse and the heterogeneity of the urban population. Okay, so this is how we can say that the social differentiation in case of the rural and urban community are different from each other, with rural community which is a bit the simpler and a less complex social distinctions, while the urban community display more diverse and a complex social categorizations. Then some of the other differences include like social interaction. In case of the rural community, it is more informal, slow, and under necessary. In case of the rural community, social interaction are often informal, as it means that the interactions can occur spontaneously, such as running into the neighbors at the local store or attending the community events. So it is informal; it can occur spontaneously. And it's slow means that it is the slow pace means that the interactions are more relaxed, with people having time to engage in a conversations and build the relationship. And under necessary, it means that it is personal. Interactions are often face to face, with people knowing each other's names, families, and backgrounds. So in case of the small rural town, neighbors they might gather at the local dinner for the breakfast every morning. They share stories, news, and the jokes, creating strong social bonds. And when a neighbor's farm is damaged in a storm, the whole community comes together to help with the repairs. This is how the rural community work. Then the urban community social interaction are more formal. Formal means that the interaction might be structured. It might be structured around the specific events, meetings, or appointments, and it is more reciprocal. Reciprocal means that interaction can be more formal, with people often interacting with strangers or acquaintances rather than with close friends and family. And reciprocal means that most of the people they make relationship with others while keeping in mind the calculation that what will they get in return of that. So mostly the relationship in case of the urban community are goal oriented rather than the relationship oriented. And it is the fast paced interaction. Interactions are quicker, with people having busy schedules and less time for the leisurely conversations. So in case of the large city, professions might the professions they might network at a conferences, meetings, or online platform, and they exchange the business cards, they discuss the projects, they collaborate on initiatives. When a colleague loses their job, they might receive support, and job leads to through their professional network. So these are how the social interaction are different in the rural and urban community. Then solidarity. In case of the mechanical and organic solidarity, these are the terms which were coined by the Emile Durkheim to describe the type of the social solidarity that exists in a different society. So in case of the rural community, the social solidarity is based on a shared values and beliefs. Members of the community, they share a common culture, traditions, and values. They also show and the one of the other base is the similarity and homogeneity. Community members they are similar in terms of their social status, occupation, and the lifestyle. And also one of the other reason is that community has a strong collective sense of right and wrong, which is enforced through the social norms and sanctions. So the solidarity in case of the rural community are mechanical, but in case of the urban community, the solidarity is more organic. It means that the division of labor, and there are various reasons why that. For example, the division of labor, members of the community they have different occupations, skills, and areas of expertise. Similarly, independence, community members rely on each other for goods and services, creating a sense of interdependence. And also the diversity and heterogeneity, community members they are diverse in terms of their social status, occupation, and a lifestyle. So we can take example of the mechanical solidarity, like a small town, everyone they attend the same church, they participate in a community events, they share a strong sense of tradition. So when a neighbor's house is damaged in storm, the community comes together to help with repairs, demonstrating a strong collective consent and a sense of shared responsibility. But on the other hand, we can take the urban community example. In case of the organic solidarity, like in a large city, people from different professions and a background, they work together to provide goods and services. For example, a doctor, a teacher, a chef, and a software engineer, they may all live in the same neighborhood. They rely on each other for their respective services, and their interdependence creates a sense of organic solidarity where individuals recognize their place within the larger social system. Then the other difference is the culture. In case of the urban community and rural community, their culture is different. Rural community culture is more homogeneous. Homogeneous culture means that they often tend to have more uniform culture with shared values, traditions, and customs, because most of the traditional practices that are more prominent in case of the rural community, they are mostly the farming, the craftsmanship, and the folk arts, which are shared by the majority members of the rural community. Similarly, they have strong social bonds with the close-knit families and the neighborhood. So in a small town, the annual harvest festival is a cherished tradition. The community comes together to celebrate the harvest season, they share food, and they participate in a folk dances. This event reinforces the community's shared values and strengthen the social bonds. Then on the other hand, in case of the urban community, the culture is more heterogeneous. Urban communities are often culturally diverse with people from a different ethnic, national, and socioeconomic background. Urban communities experience culture fusion where different traditions and the practices they blend together. There's assimilation occur. And in case of the urban community, the urban communities are constantly evolving with the new cultural trends, art forms, and the lifestyle emerging. Means that there is more room for the cultural diffusion in case of the urban community. So in a large metropolitan city, a neighborhood festival, they celebrate the diversity of its residents. They even feature music, food, and performance from different cultures, showcasing the community's vibrant culture tapestry, and this festival promotes cross-cultural understanding and exchange, reflecting the urban community heterogeneity and the dynamic culture. This is how the culture of the rural and the urban community are different. Then in case of the economic differences, in case of the rural community, as we discussed, the major profession that is associated with the rural community is agriculture. So of course the economic differences is based on their basis of economy. In case of the rural community, there is agriculture-based economy which is more prominent there. For example, in case of the Pakistan, the agriculture share in our GDP is about 20.9%. Is according to the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. And similarly, employment through the agriculture is also part of our economy, that 38.5% of the labor force it is employed in agriculture. This is according to a source of the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. Then for example, we can take example like a rural village in Punjab, Pakistan. Most residents, they engage in farming, growing crops like wheat, rice, and sugarcane. The village economy relies heavily on agriculture, with many families owning small plots of lands. Similarly, in case of the India, agriculture share in GDP is about 17.8%, which according to the Reserve Bank of India is the data of the year 2020 to 2021. Similarly, 42.3% of the labor force are employed in agriculture in case of India is the statistic taken from the National Statistic Office of India. Okay, so we can say that the rural community is mostly the economic difference is more dominant because the economy of the rural community is agriculture based, but in case of the urban community, this is a more services based economy, and the services sector share in the GDP of Pakistan is 56.3% of the year 2020 to 2021 is the statistic taken from the source Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. Similarly, 41.1% of the labor force is employed in the services sector is the statistic of the data 2020 to 2021 according to the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. So if, for example, in case of the Karachi, Pakistan's largest city, the economy is driven by the services such as the finance, IT, and the healthcare. Many residents, they work in offices, they work in banks and hospitals, they contributing to the city vibrant services. Similarly, in case of the India, the services sector share in GDP is about 54.4% of the 2020 to 2021 is the statistic taken from the Reserve Bank of India. Similarly, the 31.3% of the labor force is employed in the services in case of the urban community is of the year 2019 to 2020, and the data taken from the National Statistical Office of India. For example, in case of the Bangalore of India, which is the India's IT hub, the economy is dominated by the service sector, particularly IT and the software services. So many residents work in tech companies, startups, and research institutions driving the city knowledge-based economy. So this is how the rural and the urban community economic differences is more prominent because of the profession in which they are associated with, and also one of the reasons is the scope, that the agriculture services have less scope as compared to the services-based economy. Of course, it had a services-based economy had a more profound impact all over the world. Okay, then the age structure is one of the demographic differences. We can also call it a demographic differences of the rural urban community. In case of the rural community, the aging population is more prominent. The older population is more prominent in case of the rural community. They tend to have the higher percentage of older adults. And there are also the out migration of youth. Younger people often migrate to the urban areas for education, employment, and the better opportunities. That's why they have the older population. It could be one of the reasons that there is out migration of youth. So in case of the Pakistan, the rural population age about 65 plus people, they are about 7.4% of the 2020s according to the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. And the urban population age 65 plus is 5.4% of the year 2020 according to the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. So the rural urban migration rate in case of the Pakistan is 22.1% of the rural population. They migrated to the urban areas between 1998 to 2017 according to the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. So this is because of the out migration of youth that is actually compelling the rural community to have more older population, and that is leading to the high youth population in case of the urban community. Similarly, in case of the India, the rural population age 60 plus is about 10.3% of 2011 according to the census of India, and the urban population age 60 plus is 7.4% of the year 2011 according to the census of India. So the rural urban migration rate is about 18.4% of the rural population migrated to the urban areas between 2001 and 2011 according to the census of India. So this is how the urban community, where there are, in case of the urban community, there are more younger population, they have a higher percentage of the younger adults, and this is one of the reason is the in-migration of youth. There is out-migration of youth in case of the rural community, but the in-migration of youth in case of the urban community. The younger people are attracted to urban areas for education, employment, and the better opportunities. So this is how this statistic illustrates the demographic differences between the rural and urban community in Pakistan and India. So it means that the rural community have a higher percentage of older adults, while the urban have a higher percentage of the younger adults. And the rural-urban migration is a significant factor that contribute to these demographic differences. Then examples, we can take various examples of the rural-urban community. Any village or town in your country is the rural community, and all of the other your major cities of your country are the urban community. So rural community is any people you take, like who are living in a small villages, they will be called as the rural community. And the group of people who are living in the urban community, they form their community in a large cities, they will be termed as the urban community. So in case of the rural, we can take like small village in rural Punjab in case of the Pakistan, and also there are tribal villages in case of the India. You can take this example, but in case of the urban community like Karachi, Karachi is the city, and the people who are living there will form a community that is called the urban community. Similarly, Mumbai is in case of the India, the people living there and forming their urban community in Mumbai. Similarly, in case of New York. So the people of your country who are living in a rural villages and who have all these characteristics which you have just discussed, that they have the less social mobility, they have the older population, and they have the informal social interaction, all these characteristics we have just discussed, they'll be termed as the rural community. But on the other hand, the people who are living in big cities, metropolis areas where there are more opportunities, they are associated with the service-based economy, they will be termed as the urban community. So this was all about the differences between the rural and the urban community. So this was the end of our lecture. Thank you so much for watching, and leave your questions in the comment section below, and like, share, and subscribe our channel for latest lectures. Thank you.